Welcome, deep divers. Okay, just take a second, close your eyes maybe, and picture a sound. That really specific, warm, kind of woozy effect makes a guitar or synth feel so alive, almost like it's melting a bit. It's a sound a lot of musicians chase, and more often than not, it comes from one particular, pretty legendary piece of gear. Today on The Deep Dive, we're digging into the story behind a real icon in the effects world, the Diamond Vibrato. We'll trace it from its pretty ambitious beginnings, get into the smart engineering behind that unique sound, follow its surprising journey from cult favorite to, well, phenomenon, and really unpack its cultural impact.
Yeah, and our mission here really is to get beyond just what makes it special. We want to figure out why. Why did this pedal capture everyone's imagination? Why did it become the sort of grail item you hear about all the time? We've got notes on its design, the tech specs, historical accounts, the stories about its impact, all of it. The goal is to give you a really solid understanding of this thing, its whole legacy.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Mid-2000s, Canada. The story starts with this boutique builder, Diamond Pedals, founded around 2004. But the idea for this pedal, the vibrato we're talking about, that really came together a bit later, maybe late 2006.
And what's really fascinating right from the start is how ambitious they were. I mean, think about it. Lots of folks were going digital for modulation then, but Diamond, they wanted a fully analog, true-pitch vibrato. This wasn't about modeling or faking it. It was about getting that really lush, warbly sound you'd find on old 70s, 80s units.
Right.
And doing it with vintage-style Bucket Brigade chips, the BBDs, but built with modern high-fidelity standards. They were chasing a specific vibe.
And apparently they nailed it because this thing took off pretty quick. People wanted it because it delivered those really rich vibrato, even chorus vibrato tones that were just super hard to find in a truly analog pedal that wasn't noisy or clunky. It had that vintage soul, but with, modern reliability and a clean signal. Perfect timing, really. Right, that makes sense. So the initial success was there, but let's get under the hood. What exactly was the magic? What did Diamond do technically to get that sound everyone wanted, that famous warble?
Okay, so the heart of it, the actual pitch modulation, the vibrato and that chorus blend, and comes down to a classic component. The MN3000L7. That's a Bucket Brigade device, a BBD chip. And it's prized specifically for that inherent warmth, that vintage character. It's basically the engine giving you that signature analog modulation sound, that warble we keep mentioning. Choosing that specific chip, even back then when they were getting harder to find, was crucial. And it's important to stress the true pitch vibrato part. A lot of pedals called vibrato are, well, actually chorus pedals with the dry signal removed, or they use other methods that aren't quite pure pitch shifting. The Diamond aimed for clean pitch shifting. Now, yeah, there's a little bit of analog color, maybe a tiny bit of noise inherent in the BBD. It's part of the charm, right? Like tape hiss. But the goal was minimal weird artifacts in the actual pitch change itself. That focus on pure modulation, not just detuning, really set it apart.
Okay, purity sounds great, but wasn't noise a huge problem with old analog modulation, that hiss and grit? How did Diamond get that warmth without making it sound, well, noisy? Especially thinking about the reissue later on.
That's a really good question, and it points to a smart move they made, especially with the newer version, to tackle that exact issue, getting the vintage analog sound without the vintage noise. The reissue borrows a compander circuit. They actually took it from their own memory lane junior delay. So a compander, basically, it combines a compressor and an expander.
Yeah.
Its job here is to cleverly clamp down on the background noise and distortion that can come from the BBD chip path, but and this is key, without squashing the dynamics of your guitar signal. It cleans things up, makes it clear for you playing it and for anyone listening without sacrificing the feel.
You mentioned voltage earlier. The original needed 18 volts, which was kind of unusual, but the new one's flexible. That whole voltage thing seems like a big part of its personality. How does that actually change the sound for someone playing it?
Oh, this is where it gets really fun for the player, actually. It becomes part of dialing in your sound. The reissue runs on anything from 9 to 18 volts DC. And changing that voltage, it genuinely changes how the pedal responds. It affects the sweep speed range, the depth you can get, the headroom. But more than that, it subtly changes the pedal's whole tonal character. You get different amounts of that warble, different coloration, because the BBD clock inside is actually running differently. Players found, higher voltages like 18V feel more open, maybe less compressed, cleaner sweep, like a refined sound, but lower voltages, down towards 9V, can bring out more of that warble, add a bit more grit or color. More vintagey, perhaps. These aren't flaws, they're like different flavors. It adds so much depth.
And it wasn't just the voltage, right? It had a decent set of controls, too, for fine-tuning. It seems like they wanted to give players real control over shaping that warble, not just an on-off effect.
Exactly. The controls are pretty intuitive but powerful. You've got your standard level, speed, and depth knobs, obviously. But then there's a dedicated chorus knob, which is super useful. You can blend the dry signal back in, go from pure vibrato all the way to a really lush chorus. There's also a jazz switch that gives you a darker, smoother voicing, kind of mellows it out. And a really cool feature is the speed doubler foot switch. You can set it to momentary, just for a quick burst of faster vibrato or latching, to lock in that faster speed. It's built for expressive playing.
Okay, so the pedal's great, people love it, but then things get interesting. After that first run, the original Diamond Vibrato became really hard to find. That big gray box version, almost mythical. Prices on the used market started getting kind of crazy. People were talking about it constantly, but actually getting one, tough.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, the company, Diamond Pedals, actually faced some real financial difficulties during that period. It wasn't smooth sailing, but then came a big turning point. December 2022. Solid Gold FX, another well-respected Canadian pedal builder, acquired Diamond. That was huge news. It basically paved the way for a comeback, for bringing back these beloved designs. Hope was reignited for a lot of musicians.
And comeback it did. 2024, the Vibrato is back. But it wasn't just a reissue, was it? They made changes. Smaller box, much more pedal board friendly, top-mounted jacks, thank goodness. Relay true bypass, which is nice. And like we talked about, that wider voltage input, 9 to 18 volts, plus the better compander circuit for lower noise. And here's a killer detail for collectors. That first batch, 800 units, used new old stock MN3307 chips, the original vintage parts. That created instant buzz. But let's be real, maybe the single biggest thing that launched this pedal into the stratosphere wasn't just how good it was or how rare it became. It was one artist, wasn't it? Kevin Parker. Tame Impala.
Oh, absolutely. That's undeniable. Tame Impala's album Lonerism, back in 2012, and other tracks too. Parker used the Diamond Vibrato everywhere. Guitars, synths, strings. It became the sound, that signature woozy, warbly, kind of psychedelic vibrato that just defines so much of Tame Impala's music. It wasn't just an effect he used sometimes. It was fundamental to his sound. And suddenly, everyone wanted that sound.
Yeah.
He basically put the pedal on the map globally.
And you saw it happen almost overnight. Because of that exposure, demand just went through the roof. Used prices for the old ones became astronomical. It cemented its status as a true unicorn pedal. Talked about all the time online, desperately wanted, but almost impossible to find or afford. It became more than just gear. It was a legend.
And it connects to that whole challenge of vintage tone replication, doesn't it? That MN3007 BBD chip, the core of the sound, they just don't make them anymore. So the supply of the original new old stock chips is finite. That's why that first batch of the reissue, using those specific NS chips, was such a big deal for collectors and purists. There's always that worry, among enthusiasts that future runs might have to use newer reproduction chips, and maybe, just maybe, the tone won't be exactly the same. Adds to the mystique, I suppose.
We keep coming back to the voltage, but it really is such a defining characteristic. That flexibility in the reissue compared to the fixed 18V original. It's not just a technical detail. It's like having different modes built in.
Exactly. It's a creative parameter. The contrast is stark. Players really dug into exploring those differences. Like we said, higher voltage often feels wider, cleaner, less compressed. Lower voltage brings out more of that chewy warble, maybe a bit darker. It lets you tailor the pedal's personality. Is it a subtle shimmer or a full-on seasick wobble? The voltage plays a big part in that feel. It adds this incredible versatility.
And all of this, the history, the sound, the scarcity, the Tame Impala connection, the NS chips, the improvements, it all led to this massive buzz around the reissue launch.
Oh yeah, it sold out instantly everywhere. It really was a perfect storm. You had the improved features appealing to practicality. You had the nostalgia factor for people who remember the original, and then you had this huge wave of pent-up demand, especially from younger players who basically discovered the sound through Kevin Parker and wanted a piece of it.
Yeah.
It's a prime example of how gear can become more than just its function. It becomes tied up in culture, in fandom, in sonic trends. It was definitely an event.
So, okay, let's zoom out. What's the takeaway here for you listening? Whether you play guitar, produce music, or just love listening closely. Why does one specific pedal get this legendary, almost mythical status? Why the passion?
Well, looking at the big picture, the Diamond Vibrato story isn't just about electronics, is it? It's really a story about the search for a very specific kind of expressive analog tone, something that feels organic. It touches on brilliant design, the sort of accidental magic of certain old components like that MN3007 BBD chip, the psychology of rarity, and of course, the immense power an artist like Kevin Parker can have in defining a sound for a generation and driving massive demand. It's where engineering, art, and cultural momentum all collide. It really shows how choosing specific, maybe even obsolete tech can end up defining the sound of an era.
It's been a really cool journey today, really getting into the weeds with the Diamond Vibrato, from how it started, the tech inside, that whole unicorn phase, and then its big return. It's just such a clear example of how one piece of gear designed with passion can leave such a lasting mark on music.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? In today's world, digital modeling is everywhere. It's incredibly powerful, often really accurate. So what value do we still put on analog hardware? On its quirks, its imperfections, its sometimes unpredictable character? How do those very things, the limitations of the unique artifacts, become the secret sauce? The thing that defines an iconic sound and sparks new creative ideas even when perfect digital copies are available? It's a fascinating question.
Absolutely. So next time you hear that sound, that distinctive, beautiful, warbly vibrato in a song, or maybe you see a musician hunting down some specific vintage pedal, just take a second and think about the story that might be behind it. That blend of clever design, maybe some luck with old parts, scarcity, and cultural waves. It's just a great reminder that sometimes the most unique, the most cherished sounds, they come from very specific, often very passionate pursuits. And that's pretty cool.